Hi and welcome back. Erica here from Crafty Geek Enterprises. This week I am 3D modeling a 2-liter bottle. I chose this project because I thought it would be fairly simple just to combine some primitive objects such as domes and cylinders and create an end product. I also wanted to take the opportunity to learn a few new techniques such as patterning and as well as external threads and internal threads. The external threads, of course, would be going up the neck of the bottle, and the internal threads would be for the inside of the cap. Now, this process took a lot longer than I expected, which is why this video is so late coming out. The main reason it took longer than I thought it would is because, as most simple things in life, once you start studying them, and especially if you try to replicate it, it turns out it's much more complex than you first realized. And the same goes with a 2-liter bottle, especially when you're replicating it. There's a lot of nuances to the bottle. For example, there's a lot of flares and concave shapes and convex shapes, as well as it's hollow. Alright, let me catch you up to speed here. What I've done is I've created a flared cylinder, and basically I just took a circle and extruded that and beveled the edges, and this will represent the flare in the neck of the bottle just under the threaded portion. And I snapped the dome to that cylinder to make sure that it centers itself. If you snap the cylinder to the dome, it will connect just wherever. It doesn't snap immediately to the center of the dome. So again, snap the dome to the cylinder and it will align itself properly. I also took a shorter cylinder and stuck a torus or a ring onto that. That ring represents the lip on a 2-liter bottle that the cap rests against once it's screwed all the way down. It helps prevent leaks. So I made sure that my 2-liter bottle had one of those rings on it. Unfortunately, I did not have a 2-liter bottle on hand to use as reference. I really should have. As an artist, if you're trying to replicate something, you really always want to have reference. Unfortunately, we finished the cream soda that I was going to use, and the bottle got thrown out before I could make this video, so I'm doing this by memory. Okay, the cylinder I just added is going to be the threaded portion of the bottleneck, and I'm adjusting the sizes and what have you to my liking. Here I am adding a torus. The purpose of this torus will be in the creation of the threads. And what you do is you split the torus into 2 equal-sized ring segments. Basically, you cut a ring right in half. Then you tilt each half in different directions. For example, if you tilt the ring on the left -6 degrees, you want to tilt the ring on the right a +6 degrees. So it's opposite to each other. Unfortunately, I tilted the wrong axis the first few times, and when I snapped these ring segments back together, they actually joined completely and formed a solid ring instead of the spiraling thread that I was really trying to create. And it took me a while to figure out why it wasn't working. Once again, like I said, I was tilting the wrong axis. I was tilting the forward and back, not the side to side. If you tilt one thing forward 6 degrees and the other thing back -6 degrees, it's basically on the same angle. And you snap them together and it forms a solid ring, which is not what I wanted. I wanted threads. A nice spiral. It also, this portion here, I'm also learning how to use the patterning tool. And in order to do this, I copied and pasted the ring segments after I tilted them. Then I took a rectangle sketch and put that on the work surface. You need a sketch to work off of when you're trying to create a pattern so that you can pick which direction you want your pattern to go in. So you go up to the pattern tool, you select the object you want to replicate, then you select the side of your sketch, in this case a rectangle, in which the direction you want your pattern to move in, and then you just drag your mouse over and it multiplies your object as many times as you like in the direction that you move your mouse. So that's how you use the pattern tool. Okay, here you see I'm tweaking the axis again on these ring segments. I finally discovered why my rings were not forming spirals. So I'm snapping one face of one ring to a face of another ring, and I'm trying to maneuver. Okay, so I've determined that that is the correct way to tilt my ring segments in order to make a spiral, and I also determined I don't really need that many rings, so I only copied those segments twice instead of making, 12 of them using the pattern tool. Whoops, I accidentally pulled that cylinder right out of the middle of those threads, which I didn't want to do. But I do want the cylinder to be a little bit longer because, as you can see at the bottom, the threads actually extend down past the cylinder, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm making the cylinder taller, and then I'm going to move the cylinder down into the threads so that all the threads are on a portion of the cylinder. And merge these. I've finally got the hang of merge. Yay! It's all one object now. I'm snapping that portion of the neck onto the other portion of the neck that I've already attached to the dome. And I'm going to now adjust the height of that neck to where it looks more accurate. Again, like I said, I'm working from memory, so it takes a little bit of playing with the numbers to get it to where I like it. Looking at this, I noticed that the lip that the cap rests against is way too small to serve any real function. So I'm ungrouping the torus from the flared portion of the neck so that I can delete it and put a larger torus in its place to really serve as a shelf. Alright, gonna snap a new torus on the top here, and I'm going to move the torus down the neck into position. Again, here I am trying to adjust the height of the neck. There we are. Much better. Okay, so now it's time to form the cap. So I thought I'll recreate the threaded portion of the neck. Well, I've already done that. So I can do it again, fairly easy. And then I realized, hello, I did it already. Why redo it? Why recreate the wheel and go through all that over again? So I copied and pasted what I had already done onto the work surface. Then I decided, the threads don't go all the way down that cylinder. I want to make sure it goes further down so that when I subtract it out of the cylinder that I'm going to use as the cap, the threads don't just stop inside of it, they go all the way to the edge. So let's snap another ring section on there, and that'll fix that. Merge these to form one object, snap it to the cylinder I'm using for the cap. Then I realize, the cap is too small, so I need to increase the diameter so that it will encompass the threads completely. Now I can sink that threaded portion down inside the cap. Not all the way through, just into it. There we go. Now let's adjust the angle and make sure it's centered from above. That looks pretty good. Use the subtract tool. I want to keep the cap and subtract the threads, and there you are, a threaded cap. Now I'm thinking I'm going to try and hollow out these objects, make it more like a bottle. Okay? So I combine the flared cylinder with the threaded cylinder and make that all one piece. Rotate it and use the shell tool to hollow out the shape, but it doesn't work. Great. So I fiddle around with the settings, trying to get it to do what I want, but as you see, Invalid operation. Invalid operation. More lessons to learn. So, there's probably a way to hollow out configurations of objects, merged objects, but I didn't figure it out. So I decided to ungroup all those pieces and try the shell tool again. And that time, it worked. Yay! So now that everything's ungrouped, this should be easily hollowed out as well, right? Well, let's find out. Then I realized, you know what? If I hollow that out, I'm going to have basically a pipe extending down into the bottle. I don't want that. So I need to move that flared cylinder up so that it rests onto the top of the dome instead of going down inside of it. There we are. Now when I hollow that out, you won't see it extending down into the dome portion. But again, there we go. Now we're hollow. Yay. Now I'm going to try that. And then I'm confused, because it hollowed out the neck portion, but there was still something plugging up the neck of the bottle. So I keep trying, because that's what I do. Try again. Then I decide, you know what? I'll just create a really long cylinder and subtract it from these shapes. So that's what I do. Subtract. Okay. I want to keep the neck. I want to subtract the cylinder. Boom. Oh, wait. There's still something plugging it. What is it? See, what happens is when you use the shell tool, it doesn't completely turn your object into a tube, because it doesn't know that's what you want. It creates a bowl. So that flared portion of the neck was still plugged because it was a bowl instead of a tube. Okay, so I tried it again. This time, select the flare, select the threaded portion, subtract. Let's see. What's plugging it now? The dome. Again, I used the shell. So it turned my dome into a bowl. And bowls don't have holes. Here I am trying to place a cylinder onto a dome, which I remember you cannot center using that method. So I undid everything, merged it all together to make one object, then I used the cylinder to subtract the material through all of the top of the bottle. Now I'm going to hollow out the body of the bottle. Yay! And it works. But, of course, I'm not using reference. And I think, wow, that's way too tall to be a 2-liter. So I pull up the Smart Scale tool and shrink it down a bit. Make it shorter. That's a lot better. I'm going to rotate that top portion so I can access the bottom flange easier. But when I rotate it, guess what happens? That's right. That ring wasn't attached. So, let's merge it. Make it one object. Now when I rotate it, all the pieces move. Alright. snap tool, snap that edge to that edge, boom. You have a bottle. Or a canister. Kind of looks like an O2 pack. Scuba diving. That's what it reminds me of. Alright, now I rotated this bottle assembly so I could work on the feet of the 2-liter bottle. Again, every 2-liter has domes on the bottom, hemispheres, that act as feet. And there's usually 5 of them in a circular pattern. So, what do? I start by creating a circular pattern of hemispheres. Here we go. Make 5. And then I say, you know what? I can tell already that those hemispheres are way too small. So, let's redo it and make them larger. There we go. Now use the circle pattern tool. Click your axis, increase your object count, and there we go. Group them. Rotate them. And let's try snapping them. Oh, that didn't work. It just moved one hemisphere. I need all 5. So now I'm trying to maneuver this manually. I probably should have sketched the circle onto the bottom of the bottle, then used the circular pattern tool to create the pattern of hemispheres right on the bottom of the bottle itself instead of the grid workspace. But obviously I did not try that, so that will be for a future video. Now my thought was, if you look at a 2-liter bottle, it has mountains and it has valleys. My 2-liter bottle is flat and has bumps. So, I thought, why don't I try to take these hemispheres, make duplicates, flip them around, maneuver those hemispheres so that they're in between the other ones. And then I'm thinking, I could use the subtract tool, and that would cut those shapes into the bottom of that bottle and create those valleys that you see. But then I looked at the clock, and it was almost midnight, and I had been doing this for hours. And I decided, you know what? Forget it. I don't like this idea. I'm going to go with a simplified version of this and call it quits. So, I decided to get rid of those hemispheres. After, of course, I spent way too long trying to move them into position. Kind of looks like a rocket ship. And I'm rotating this, and this is when I think, I don't think this is going to work. So I do a little experiment. I try to make my own dome by beveling a cylinder that's extruded from a circle sketch. See, now I have a dome with beveled sides. Okay, I like that look a lot better. And again, I did not learn from my first mistake. I decided to use the grid as my work surface instead of the bottom of the bottle, because that worked so well before. So here's my circle, and I'm having problems. Big surprise. Seems like that's all I have when I try to do things. Problems. You can see I'm getting frustrated because I keep clicking that axis going, why are you not doing what I want you to do? I'm like, okay, this is wrong. What did I do? Okay, I insert a sketch, not a primitive. Let's try that. Set my diameter, increase the number of objects, and there we go. Now I can extrude each of these circles into cylinders, which is what I proceed to do. One at a time. And you get to watch it. Okay, so here I am trying to determine how much I want it to flare out. Okay, so now I extrude them all, flare them out to the same degree, which I believe I used 20. Yep, 20 degrees. Do that on the rest of them. There we go. And then I will rotate these 180 degrees so that I can work on the portion that I will be doming. Let's round this off. Boom, it's a dome. And do it 4 more times. There we go, hemisphere. Rotate it. Flip it again. And move it into position. Manually, of course. Adjust the sizing. Bring these out of the bottle. They need to go onto the bottom of the bottle, not into it. And there we go. It's not bad. I mean, if you opened up a program and you saw this, you would say, hey, that's pretty cool. It's a bottle with a cap. And I learned a lot in the process. So I say it's a success. So thank you so much for sitting through this torturous video of me learning to do things. Like my video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and follow me on Twitter and Facebook. You can also go to my website. All of those links will be in the description, along with a link to the 123D design software that I use to 3D model. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. I'll see you soon.